sometimes it's not your fault, and it's not my fault either. And I want to elaborate on that a bit because I think that we, as people, tend to take the blame for things that we really don't have to. Um, when we say something is somebody's fault, this is just my take, but when we say that, it's my fault, it's my fault, a better word for that, I think, might be it's my responsibility. Because I feel like that's actually ultimately what it feels like. It feels like when I say it's my fault, it's a better way to articulate that is to say that I had some level of responsibility that I had uptaken and I let it go. I failed it because that's the idea of fault, right? So the problem with it is the idea that I think that some of us tend to uptake more responsibility than we're actually supposed to hold. And I can certainly attest to that for myself, and I'm learning that more and more every day. But I think in life you can only hold people responsible for the things that they are aware of, including ourselves. So you can't hold yourself responsible for something that you didn't know about. You can't, it's similar to my original thoughts on regret, where it's like you can't live in regret about stuff you didn't know. And the same thing goes for when you feel like it's your fault. It's like, bro, it's not that you couldn't have known per se, but it's that there are times in life where you feel responsible for something that you could never have known that you were responsible for, if that makes sense. People end up in failed marriages. People end up at bad jobs. People end up in terrible search situations with family members and friends and finances. And, I'm only now learning a little bit. I don't have a house, but I'm only now learning a little bit about how home loans work. And I'm like, dude, I can't imagine accidentally getting like a variable rate interest loan with like high interest and not knowing. And you're just like, I just didn't know. And I mean, how responsible for you for knowing that? Well, I mean, it depends on how responsible you choose to believe you are for things. Well, what about things where you literally couldn't have known because you were completely blind to them? Like, can you take fault for something where you could not have possibly known that that thing was something that was in your life or in your purview? Like, you can't know. My big ones involve a lot of the faults that I've had socially and internally with ADHD. I had no idea how damaged and how dysfunctional certain aspects of my brain were and my mind were, and I don't even know, like, I don't even know if it was always like that. Like, I didn't know, but I can't hold myself responsible for all of the things that I did wrong as a result of not knowing that there was something going on. I can give some silly examples, but like as an example, I'll give a really good example. I had some of the worst anxiety of my entire life. Um, actually, I'm gonna pause. I'm gonna pause on this one. That should be another episode where I articulate my anxiety, because that's actually a really, really good cross-reference anxiety one. That's a great one. So I'm gonna do that next. I'm gonna pause and use a different example. So I'm gonna cross-reference anxiety in the next episode, but this one's different. Okay, gonna continue. I have to listen to these episodes a little bit because they've got more involved in them. Okay, so the next thing. What's a good story? What is a good story? A good story as an example with my ADHD. Oh, here's a good one. So I'll use this as an example. I had struggled for 25 years with creating internal motivation. And so what happened is I would, watch some YouTube video where Jocko Willink or Jordan Peterson says, "It's your life," and they get up and they motivational speaker you into oblivion, and you feel like you want to change your whole life. And obviously some of those videos are designed a little bit to kind of hook you, but at the end of the day, I kind of was always looking for like a mantra, something that I could say to myself internally every day that I could write on the wall that would make me go, this is my meaning, this is my purpose, something like that. I needed like a mantra, something like a slogan for my life, even if it was like 1, 2, or 3 of them. That's what I needed. And I was not aware that every single time when I picked one, it like lasted 2 days, that was a dysfunction in my brain. And it was a dysfunction in my neural network. I didn't understand that, like, so essentially I would like pick some, big motivating reason why I'm doing what I'm doing, and it would be some mantra, and I put it up, and then like 2 or 3 days would go by, and I would go, oh, that doesn't feel remotely motivating for me anymore. Well, I just need a different one. Well, I just need another one and another one. And you can see that over time, I just kept trying to find a new one. I spent years trying to find a motivating thing that would act that just like that, and couldn't find one. Couldn't find something that would internally motivate me. Whether it's a mantra, whether it's a relationship, whether it's anything, there was no ability to internally motivate myself at all. And now that I understand that that is a fault of the neural pathways in my brain, but I go, oh, that explains everything. But I don't hold myself responsible for the moments and the faults that I had as a result of not knowing that. So the times when I wasn't motivated and I acted in ways that lack motivation, where I just didn't do the right thing, didn't do what I was supposed to do, just didn't do that stuff because I wasn't motivated. Those times when I did that, where I didn't act because I wasn't motivated, and was usually miserable as a result. I didn't understand that was because I can't feel internal motivation. If I can, it's very, very fleeting. And I didn't understand that. And so now that I understand that, I hold myself responsible now, but I didn't hold myself responsible. I can't hold myself responsible for the past. And even if I hold myself responsible for some things in the past, and some things are my fault, I still have to move on, right? So there are things that we can't hold ourselves responsible for, things that we just didn't know prior were going on in our life. And if we didn't know, if we had a blind spot, or we had something that we didn't understand about ourselves, and we're sitting there wallowing in self-pity and frustration, here's another really good example, because I'll give you this one, especially for people that are big-hearted people. This is maybe going to be a surprise. I wasn't aware, because I in high school I dated a couple times, and I would struggle with heartbreak for like a year. Like, I would date a girl for maybe like a week or two, and I would be a wreck for an entire year. I didn't know that the reason that I was probably a wreck for over a year is because I had extremely poor emotional processing and emotional regulation. Every single day felt exactly the same pain, exactly the same frustration, and it never moved on. And even only now, years later, is it starting to move on, because I'm able to understand and process things with the medicine I'm on. But I didn't know that whole time with the girls that I dated, and the emotional pain and heartbreak of the rejection of that, and the way that felt. I was there. People that have ADHD, some people that have that, their brains have trouble with emotional regulation, and so emotions just feel extremely intense. And being able to process emotions is very hard, because we can't. You have to be able to enact the body for that. And because of what I believe, but don't know, I'm not a doctor, I believe that I probably hit extremely low norepinephrine levels for however many years. My brain was not able to process out all those emotions. And so I would just spend years in heartbreak when I didn't know there's something else going on. I couldn't get over it for a reason that was beyond me. So I spent years suffering when I didn't actually really have to, because there was more going on beneath the surface. I think, personally. I'm pretty confident about that now that I'm older. But I don't hold myself responsible. I don't hold myself at fault for spending months and years processing things that happened in the past that were more painful and went on for longer than they needed to. I say I'm not going to do that anymore. I just move on. I'm not going to sit in the. It's one thing for me to say that I'm not going to live in regret. It's another thing to say that I'm not going to accept fault for things within myself that I did not know about. And I will close with this as well. It's very hard for us to do this for ourselves, but it's also really hard for us to do it for other people too. Could you hold somebody responsible for something that they don't know about? That's a great question. If somebody is taking, a if a let's this is a really really strange example, and it's not, fortunately, this is not to I hope this isn't real for anybody else. This is just a random example. It's not related to anything, but it's like if you had a dementia patient that was taking a medication that would fix their dementia, but they were actually abusing the medication and they didn't know that. I mean, do you hold them accountable for that? Moreover, do you hold somebody with dementia accountable for the actions that they take? Well, no, because for most of them, because they don't know what's going on, right? And so, how do you hold people accountable for things? You hold people accountable for things where they are responsible for them because they know better. If somebody's blind to something, then it's our responsibility as friends and lovers and mentors and parents and family members and all that, to make them aware of what they are responsible for themselves. And that could be really hard sometimes when somebody's screwing up and they just don't know. They have no idea. And when once that person knows, once they've been made aware, and they have actually been made aware, they're not just saying, yeah, I get it. No, they understand the consequences for what they're doing, or they understand the responsibilities that they have for themselves. Then it's on them. Then you can hold them responsible, but you can't hold people, including yourself, responsible for the things that you just didn't know about, that you were blind to, or that your friends and family were blind to. It's like there's just no way to do that. And we should be willing to let go of the times where we messed up like that, where we screwed up and we didn't know better, but we know better now.